Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Thank you for joining us. Merci d'être parmi nous aujourd'hui. We are here today to provide an operational update on the expected arrival of a truck demonstration into the downtown core of Ottawa. Nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour vous fournir une mise à jour opérationnelle sur l'arrivée prévue d'une manifestation de camions dans le centre-ville d'Ottawa. My name is Sebastian Tremblay and I will be your moderator. Je m'appelle Sébastien Tremblay, je serai l'animateur de cette séance. Before we begin, a reminder to place your microphone on mute until I invite you to ask your question. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais vous rappeler de désactiver votre microphone jusqu'à ce que je vous invite à poser votre question. Today, we will be hearing remarks from Ottawa Police Service Chief Peter Slowly, le chef du service de la police d'Ottawa, Peter Slowly, followed by Acting Deputy Chief Trish Ferguson, Community Policing, le chef adjoint par intérim Trish Ferguson, Police Communautaire, and Kim Ayotte, General Manager of Emergency and Protective Services, Directeur Général des Services de Protection et d'Urgence. Available for questions from the media following the statements, we also have, disponible pour répondre aux questions des médias, nous accueillons aussi Bill Landry, Director, Traffic Services, Directeur de la Circulation. After we hear from the panelists, we will take questions from the media. We will now begin with remarks by Chief Peter Slowly.
Merci beaucoup, Sébastien. Good morning. Bonjour à toutes, à tous. Ottawa is built on the unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. The peoples of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. The Ottawa Police Service and the City of Ottawa honors the peoples and land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. The Ottawa Police Service and the City of Ottawa honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. As you all know, there is a major demonstration taking place over the next several days here in the nation's capital. In fact, demonstrators have already started to arrive, and our officers have been managing a series of small demonstrations in the city core over the last 24 hours. So far, they have been peaceful and uneventful. The main demonstrations will commence tomorrow, will continue through the weekend, and may continue into the following week. We know that there will be demonstrators from across Canada, including Ottawa residents. The heart of Canada's democracy is our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the right to demonstrate and to have our views heard peacefully. That said, all rights and freedoms come with responsibilities and limitations. Public safety is paramount in all such demonstrations and will be in this demonstration. The safety of all the demonstrators, the safety of the city, the community, the residents, the tourists, and the businesses, the safety of the police officers, along with our emergency services and City of Ottawa partners. The members of the Ottawa Police Service are duty-bound to protect the Charter, and as such, the Ottawa Police Service and our partners facilitate hundreds of peaceful, lawful, and safe demonstrations every year, regardless of the cause. The demonstrations this weekend will be unique, fluid, risky, and significant. These demonstrations are national in scope. They are massive in scale. Unfortunately, they are polarizing in nature, and they come almost 2 full years into a highly stressful and tragic global pandemic. There have been many concerns expressed in the community, and many questions have been raised about what we can expect over the next several days. Here is what we do know so far about the core Freedom Convoy demonstration. The organizers have advised us that this will be a peaceful demonstration. They have confirmed that there will be a large number of trucks and participants, and that the main planned demonstrations will take place on Saturday and Sunday this weekend. With demonstrations of this scale, there are significant risks to be mitigated, but that we cannot fully eliminate. For instance, we have a major traffic plan to ensure that emergency lanes are kept open in the downtown core. But with hundreds of trucks demonstrating in the downtown core for days, we know that there will be major traffic safety issues. There are unique variables associated with this demonstration, some that we can influence, and some that will be beyond our ability to fully control. For instance, we have been in constant communication with the core Freedom Convoy organizers. Still, there are other parallel demonstrators who we have not been able to engage fully with. There are also social media actors locally, nationally, and internationally. Actors who may or may not actually come to the city to participate in the demonstrations, but who are nonetheless inciting hate, violence, and in some cases criminality to take place in our city. We still do not have a confirmed number of trucks and demonstrators. We do not have an established end date for the demonstrations. They could go through the weekend and into next week. We do not know all of the parallel demonstrations that may occur and or the lone wolf individuals who may insert themselves into the mix for various reasons. We do not know the full impact that a demonstration of this size, scale, and potential duration will have on public safety or on public health outcomes while we're in the latest phase of the COVID pandemic. Based on what we do know so far, I can tell you that we have significantly increased the level of local, provincial, and national communication and coordination commensurate to the evolving nature of the demonstration. This includes bringing in significantly more police, national security, emergency services, and city resources. Starting today and increasing over the weekend, Ottawa residents and visitors can expect to see a large police and emergency services presence in the downtown core and on major highways and roads in and around the city. As the demonstrators arrive in larger numbers today, major traffic delays and congestion will occur. Over the course of the weekend, there will be gridlock in the core, and it will impact road usage citywide. We will do everything possible to maintain emergency routes in the core, but we ask everyone not to visit or travel in the downtown core if you do not need to. For those of you living or working in the downtown core, we understand your concerns, and we are working to lessen the impacts on your lives, but there will be significant impacts. So please plan accordingly. Try to do any shopping or errands today. Anticipate that there will be little ability for home delivery services in the core. There may in fact be very limited vehicle, bicycle, or even pedestrian access to the core for safety reasons, given that some areas may be very close to demonstration sites and pose public safety risks. The Ottawa Police Service has resources available to provide police services for the rest of the city during the duration of the demonstration period. That said, we ask that you use your 911 communication services appropriately, that you do not make unnecessary police service and emergency service demands during this period, that there may be delays and in fact gaps in our services depending on the impacts of the demonstrations. Over the past week, we have been meeting with our partners to develop an operational plan to ensure that we have the most current information and intelligence from all available sources. This information and intelligence informs the spectrum of risks, threats, and variables that we have to plan for. We then make our plan and constantly update those operational plans to secure the most available and appropriate resources in our best attempt to mitigate, if not eliminate, those threats, risks, and variables. In an event such as this, with its ever-evolving, fluid, and dynamic nature, there will never be a perfect plan. And we do not have unlimited resources. As you will soon hear, we have a variety of well-developed and well-resourced plans to try to adequately and effectively address those known threats, risks, and variables. We have plans for traffic disruption and parking problems. We have plans for more serious issues like damage to property, criminal acts, or other violent behaviors. This includes the ability to gather evidence along the traveled routes of the demonstration, at the demonstration sites, and online in social media. Let me be very clear. We are prepared to investigate, arrest if necessary, charge and prosecute anyone who acts violently or breaks the law in the demonstrations or in association with the demonstrations. We have the capability and the commitment to pursue investigations and prosecutions well after the demonstrations have ended. This event has drawn a lot of attention from mainstream media, elected officials, and social media. It has the international community's attention as well. This is an important issue for all Canadians, no matter where people live or where they personally sit on the spectrum of views in regards to the issues being demonstrated about. That said, it is irresponsible to inflame this already volatile situation, and in some cases, it may be illegal to express hate or incite criminality and violence in association to the demonstrations. We have seen in other jurisdictions where such inflammatory behaviors have led to people getting injured, killed, and/or incarcerated. We are doing everything we can to ensure that does not happen here. We are monitoring all intelligence and coordinating with federal, provincial, and local partners to ensure that we are identifying those who could pose a threat to the city over the coming days. We have evidentiary teams that will be videotaping all aspects of the demonstration. We'll be gathering evidence should there be any acts of violence or unlawful behavior. We have intelligence assets and investigators who will be working throughout the entire event in the days and weeks and months following the demonstration, should there be any violence or acts of criminality associated with the demonstration. We have consulted with the Crown Attorney's Office, and we are prepared both legally and operationally to address any risks associated with the demonstration while we continue to facilitate people's right to protest under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We have also developed a plan to facilitate the orderly and peaceful departure of the truck convoy from Ottawa at the end of the demonstration. We ask that everyone who attends the demonstrations to be respectful of each other and to the area residents and businesses, to be respectful to the Ottawa Police Service officers and members, along with our police, national security, emergency services, and City of Ottawa partners. The Ottawa Police Service and our partners will do our very best to keep all people healthy and safe. That said, we have a collective responsibility to keep the community healthy and safe. We have to work together to enable everyone, demonstrators, visitors, residents, to get home safely to their families and their loved ones. We will do everything within our means to enable a peaceful, safe, and healthy demonstration. This includes the timely departure of all the demonstrators from the city. I will now hand it over to Acting Deputy Chief Trish Ferguson, who leads the Ottawa Police Service response to the upcoming demonstrations this weekend. Deputy Ferguson will provide a more in-depth briefing on the planning and operational framework for the demonstrations. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. This briefing will provide you with the most up-to-date information on the preparation for this weekend's demonstrations in Ottawa. I realize there's a great deal of interest in this event from our community and in fact across the country. The Ottawa Police Service is the lead agency and has overall command of this event. Over the last few days, our team has been finalizing operational plans in anticipation of the demonstrations. Ce briefage vous fournira les renseignements les plus récents sur les préparatifs en vue des manifestations de cette fin de semaine à Ottawa. Je comprends que la collectivité s'intéresse vivement à ces événements, même à travers le pays. Le service de police d'Ottawa est l'organisme principal et assume le commandement de cette situation. Au fil des derniers jours, notre équipe a terminé la mise au point des plans opérationnels en prévision des manifestations. Planning has involved coordination with our policing and intelligence partners at all levels of government, and the Ottawa Police would like to thank them for their ongoing cooperation. Information gathered continues to indicate this will be a large and significant event that is expected to last throughout the weekend. We anticipate demonstrators will arrive from several different directions in large numbers with many heavy vehicles and trucks. Over the last few days, we have received feedback and questions from members of our community. And today I will provide information relating to the most common and pressing issues for our residents so that everyone understands and is aware of our approach. We remain in regular contact with the many convoy organizers to understand their plan and to ensure that they have information relative to safe driving routes and appropriate locations to park in the city. We want to ensure demonstrators can arrive and leave as efficiently and safely as possible. The truck convoy will be directed to these specific areas as they arrive in Ottawa. City staff have been making sure appropriate signage is clearly visible, including no stopping or prohibited parking zones. We have identified and will maintain open lanes of traffic for our first responders in emergencies throughout the course of the demonstrations and the weekend. Nous demeurons en communication avec les multiples organisateurs du convoi afin de comprendre leurs plans et faire en sorte qu'ils disposent de toute l'information pertinente quant aux voies de conduite sécuritaires et aux endroits appropriés pour se stationner en ville. Nous tenons à veiller à ce que les manifestants puissent arriver et repartir le plus efficacement et le plus sécuritairement possible. Le convoi de camions sera dirigé vers ces endroits particuliers au fur et à mesure de leur arrivée à Ottawa. Le personnel municipal a veillé à ce que la signalisation pertinente soit bien visible, notamment celle indiquant les zones de stationnement et d'arrêt interdits. Nous avons identifié et garderons des voies de circulation ouvertes à l'intention de nos premiers intervenants en cas d'urgence tout au long des manifestations. This work has been coordinated with our city partners, and I would extend our thanks to our City of Ottawa colleagues for their ongoing support and tireless efforts. Our officers are here to protect the rights of individuals to demonstrate peacefully and in accordance with the law. We are also entrusted to intervene when violence and laws are broken and to restore peace. Our focus will be to preserve the safety of everyone involved. This includes Ottawa residents, demonstrators, and our police members. Residents, visitors, and demonstrators will see a very large police presence over the weekend. We will have officers on foot, in plain clothes, and using a variety of methods to conduct evidence gathering and observations of crowd. Demonstrators and residents can expect to see our members in different uniforms, with a variety of equipment on their person and in different vehicles. Nos agents sont là pour protéger le droit individuel de manifester pacifiquement et dans le respect de la loi. Nous sommes aussi chargés d'intervenir et de rétablir la paix si la violence éclate et que les lois sont enfreintes. Nous allons miser sur le maintien de la sûreté de chacun, ce qui comprend les résidents d'Ottawa, manifestants et membres de la police. Au cours de la fin de semaine, les résidents, les visiteurs et les manifestants constateront une forte présence policière. Nous aurons des agents à pied, en civil et ayant recours à une gamme de méthodes pour recueillir les éléments de preuve et observer les foules. Les manifestants et résidents peuvent s'attendre à voir nos membres vêtus en divers uniformes, munis d'un éventail de matériel et à bord de différents véhicules. We have reassigned and deployed Ottawa police officers, and we have called for assistance from other police agencies to ensure we have appropriate resources to manage any eventuality. We have already consulted with Crown Attorney to ensure they are aware of our plans and approach. While representatives from the convoy have been cooperative thus far and have informed us that their intentions are to hold a peaceful and lawful demonstrations, we are aware of other groups and individuals who are likely to attend and are not associated with the main demonstration, and groups who do not share the same peaceful goals. I would like to state that public safety is paramount. There will be consequences for any person engaging in or inciting criminal or violent behavior. We are prepared to deal with any such incidents, including making arrests and laying charges as appropriate. To our fellow citizens of Ottawa, we appreciate that area businesses and residents are concerned, particularly about information that they're seeing online. We want to assure them that we are taking every action possible to mitigate the impacts of this event on daily life in the city. But even with those efforts, this will have a significant impact on traffic. The stated goal of demonstrators is to disrupt traffic to bring attention to their cause. But it is simple. If you do not need to be downtown this weekend, avoid the area. For those of you who live downtown, expect delays and major traffic disruptions. Make adjustments to your schedule, whether it be for groceries, shopping, work, appointments, or deliveries. It will be more difficult to move around, especially by vehicle. We will work to keep you updated, and we ask that you rely on trusted sources like our Twitter feed at Ottawa Police, as well as the City of Ottawa's feed at Ottawa_traffic. Chers citoyens d'Ottawa, nous sommes conscients de l'inquiétude que ressentent les commerçants et les résidents, particulièrement à la lumière de l'information qu'ils rencontrent en ligne. Nous tenons à leur assurer que nous prenons toutes les mesures possibles pour atténuer les répercussions de ces événements sur le quotidien de la ville. Malgré ces efforts, la circulation sera sérieusement affectée. L'objectif déclaré des manifestants est de perturber la circulation pour attirer l'attention vers leur cause. C'est tout simple. S'il n'est pas nécessaire de vous être au centre-ville en fin de semaine, évitez le secteur. Quant à ceux d'entre vous qui habitent au centre-ville, attendez-vous à des retards et à des considérables perturbations de la circulation. Ajustez votre horaire en conséquence, qu'il s'agisse de faire l'épicerie, de magasiner, d'aller au travail, à un rendez-vous ou effectuer les livraisons. Il sera plus difficile de se déplacer, surtout pour les véhicules. Nous tâcherons de vous tenir au fait des événements. Nous vous prions de vous renseigner auprès de sources fiables, notamment notre fil Twitter @Ottawa Police et le fil circulation de la ville d'Ottawa @Ottawa_circule. Finally, I'd like to call on everyone involved in this weekend's events to be respectful of one another and the businesses and people that live here. This pandemic has been hard on all Canadians. It is important that we show compassion for one another while exercising our rights. That includes the local community, the demonstrators, and police officers who are working to keep everyone safe. As the police service for the National Capital, our officers have kept the peace at hundreds of demonstrations every year. These veteran officers know how to ensure that everyone who attends goes home safely. I want to thank all the officers who will be engaged this weekend. This will be hard work in cold weather, and their professionalism and dedication to this city and its citizens is remarkable. Au sein de service de la police de la capitale nationale, nos agents ont assuré le maintien de la paix lors des centaines de manifestations par année. Ces agents chevronnés savent comment veiller à ce que tous les gens de présence rentrent chez eux en sécurité. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Chief Ferguson. We will now hear from Kim Ayotte.
Thank you, Chief Slowly, Deputy Ferguson. Good morning, everyone. Bon matin, tout le monde. As we all know, the demonstration involving a large convoy of trucks is coming to Ottawa and will cause significant traffic and transit delays and disruptions this weekend. If possible, residents should avoid unnecessary travel through or into the downtown core throughout the weekend. Dans la mesure du possible, les résidents doivent éviter les placements non essentiels au centre-ville tout au long de la fin de semaine. There is a possibility that disruptions may extend beyond Sunday. There's a lot we don't know about this weekend and how it will unfold. But the one thing I do know is that the city's emergency plans are designed to be flexible and adapt to different situations. While Ottawa Police is the lead agency in the preparations of this protest, the city has fully mobilized its dedicated emergency operations center structure to provide support and coordinate communications. The city's traffic incident management group, which combines the expertise of city police services and Ottawa and Gatineau, have been preparing for different scenarios. The city is working with Ottawa Police in developing a traffic and parking management plans. and updates will be provided throughout the weekend on our regular channels. La Ville travaille avec la police d'Ottawa pour élaborer les plans de gestion de la circulation et du stationnement, et des mises en jour seront fournies tout au long de la fin de semaine. I want to assure Ottawa residents that emergency services throughout the city will be deployed and focused on ensuring that the safety of the public is maintained and that dedicated lanes are kept clear for emergency vehicles. If you at any time feel your safety is threatened, or if you need medical emergency, call 911. In the meantime, the city is working with Ottawa Police to keep the public informed on citywide traffic and transit. I encourage residents to follow the City of Ottawa on Facebook and Twitter and stay up to date on service changes that could affect you. The City of Ottawa will also provide updates and maps on ottawa.ca. La Ville d'Ottawa fournira également des mises à jour et des cartes sur ottawa.ca. For traffic updates, follow the City of Ottawa at Ottawa_traffic or use the traffic monitoring app to check for traffic congestion before you travel. OC Transpo buses and Paratranspo will also experience some delays, and detours may be required. To stay up to date on transit impacts, follow OC Transpo Twitter account at octranspo.com or call 613-560-5000. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mr. Ayotte. I will now invite questions from each agency alphabetically. You may ask one question with a follow-up. Nous allons maintenant répondre aux questions de chaque organisme par ordre alphabétique. Vous pouvez poser une question et une question de suivi. Again, a reminder to all participants to keep their cameras off unless they are speaking or asking questions. Un rappel à tous les participants de fermer l'option vidéo. We'll now start with, nous allons commencer avec Yannick Saint-Denis, 104.5 FM. Yannick, êtes-vous là? Non, on va aller à Geneviève Normand avec Agence France Presse.
Oui, bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, on t'entend, tu peux commencer.
Oui, en fait, je voulais savoir si la police d'Ottawa, si vous faites affaire avec les partenaires américains pour gérer la sécurité cette fin de semaine.
Merci Geneviève pour la question. Notre façon de faire notre intelligence, c'est avec nos partenaires internationaux en tant qu'aussi les Canadiens. Le fait que c'est une manifestation qui commence et puis principalement au Canada, nous avions certainement plus de contact avec nos partenaires ici, mais ça fait toujours partie de notre process et de regarder au côté américain et international.
Très bien. Et je sais que vous avez dit que c'est difficile d'avoir un nombre précis sur le nombre de manifestants que vous attendez, mais peut-être pour nous indiquer, vous avez dit que ce serait large in scope. Est-ce que vous avez une estimation à nous fournir? J'ai vu circuler le chiffre 10 000 manifestants. Est-ce que ça tient toujours, ça? Est-ce qu'on parle de cet ordre de grandeur?
C'est toujours quelque chose que nous cherchons de savoir l'information le plus récente et le plus en détail. Mais non, nous n'avons pas le numéro de 10 000 maintenant. Ce n'est pas quelque chose que ça n'achète pas les mêmes numéros que nous avions tout de suite. Mais je ne pourrais pas vous dire, on sait que c'est plusieurs centaines.
Merci Geneviève. We will now go to Lee Bertium with the Canadian Press.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to just follow up on some comments from Chief Stoley. You said that you have identified some other groups and perhaps individuals and whatnot who are mixed in amongst the core organizers. Can you name or identify any specific hate groups, extremist groups, anything like that, who have been identified as being or who you fear are going to be present?
Thank you very much for your question. I'm not at this point able to name any specific groups. I can assure you and the public that we have full cooperation from our national security agencies, including CSIS, RCMP, and their international partners, and their assistance in conducting a threat assessment from the beginning of this core demonstration all the way through to the end of whatever combination of demonstrations happen within the nation's capital here. We have national, provincial, and local intelligence working on this on a 24/7 basis. And even during the course of this conference call, we've had new intelligence coming in regards to local threats. That will continue, and we will be as prepared as possible to identify those individuals or groups that may seek to come here physically to cause harm to the city, to disrupt lawful demonstrations, or that may be inciting hate and or criminal violence online.
Do you have a follow-up, Lee? Are you there? All right.
Sorry about that. I thought I pushed it. I'd also like to know more about what you plan to do if the protesters remain throughout the weekend and into next week. Do you plan to let them park on the streets for days? What do you plan to do about that?
Thank you very much for the question again. That's a very fluid part of the entire operation. We have not yet received clarity from the core demonstration convoy as to what their end date and end exit strategy will be, but we are in daily and constant communication with those core organizers to make sure that there's a full understanding of what would be reasonable in terms of an egress from the entire state of affairs. We will certainly be extremely concerned should there still be a large set of demonstrations happening in the city of Ottawa, in the downtown core, as we resume a normal work week on Monday. There is increased traffic flow, pedestrian flow. There are a number of critical infrastructure operations that need to happen, from mass transportation, public education, public health. Access to the roads will become even more important than they are on the weekends. And so all those and other factors will be at play in terms of our negotiations and communication and coordination with any demonstrators who remain in the city past the weekend. Based on the risk assessments, we will take an appropriate course of action. We are prepared and capable to remove vehicles. We are prepared and capable to provide bylaw enforcement, highway traffic act enforcement, and criminal enforcement should it be necessary. But so far, we've had good cooperation and communication and coordination with the core organizers of the main truck demonstration, and we'll do our best to continue that throughout the entire process, as well with any other parallel demonstrators. But as I said earlier on, public safety is paramount. The safety of the demonstrators, the safety of the city, the safety of our businesses, our residents, our officers, emergency service providers, that will be at the top of the level, top of mind for every decision we make around the nature of the demonstration, our response to it, and the requirement for people to end.
Thank you, sir. We will now go to Joe Tunney with CBC Ottawa.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, great. And just before I ask, I just want to make sure I get an answer in both French and English. Yeah, my question is, during Canada 150, dump trucks and snowplows were deployed at intersections in the parliamentary precinct to block access by vehicles to the Hill. So I'm curious, why wasn't that done this time?
Thank you very much for the question. I'm going to actually ask Acting Deputy Chief Trish Ferguson to provide the answer.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Joe. There are a number of options that we have in order to maintain safety and access to routes. In this case, all of those options were weighed, and we have determined that we would like to keep one lane open and along all of our major routes. We will not be shutting down any major arteries, and if we do, we will be sharing that with the public. But our option on this one is to keep our routes open so that we are able to get emergency vehicles in and around the downtown core as necessary. So en français, nous avions regardé au contingent qu'on avait à notre disposition pour ces mesures de fermer les routes. Et nous avions dédié pour ce temps-ci que l'option serait plus agréable d'avoir une voie ouverte pour nos véhicules d'urgence pour passer dans la ville propre.
And for my follow-up, and again, I'll get a response in French and English, but I'm curious, do the protesters have a demonstration permit?
To my knowledge, they do not at this point. À ce que je sache, ils n'ont pas un permis pour faire leur manifestation.
All right, thank you, Jason. We will now go to Jason White with City News Ottawa. Jason?
Hi there. So my first question, if I could get the deputy chief to expand on a point I believe you were making about truckers being directed to specific routes or to specific areas. Can you elaborate a bit on that? Specifically, where are you directing the truckers, and are there any specific areas do you not want them to go? For example, onto the grounds of Parliament Hill, or are there other areas where you'd like the truckers and the demonstrators to stay away from?
Thank you, Jason. For the first part of your question, we have obviously got people coming in from east, west, and south, as well as north into the city proper. Our traffic officers are managing that, and our police liaison teams have been in communication with convoy team captains as they are approaching the city to let them know what the best route for them to come in is. We will be routing some trucks in from the western route. And the routes that we have got selected so far involve Pinecrest exit, we have the Kent exit, we have to the east core or east of the core, we have the Sir George Etienne Parkway, and we will be obviously monitoring traffic coming over from the Quebec side as well. So we will be ensuring that we are getting trucks in as efficiently and safely. Obviously, for some of the bigger vehicles, we want to keep them out of blocking intersections downtown. So we want to make sure that they're aware of what the best way, safest way to make an ingress into the city is. I'm sorry, the second part of your question?
Yeah, the second part of my question, are there areas where you don't want them to go or you're asking them to stay away from, like the grounds of Parliament Hill?
Right, thank you. The parliamentary precinct is looked after by the PPS, and so Parliamentary Protective Services. We are working in conjunction with them. To my understanding thus far, people are able to find themselves on the grounds of Parliament. And we will work with them to make sure that that is safe and that any issues that arise there we will be supporting, but PPS will be the decision maker in those ones.
Thank you. My follow-up question is about washroom access downtown, and this is for whoever feels best suited to respond. The mayor raised the possibility on our station yesterday that he was not aware of organizers arranging for portable washrooms, whereas usually that happens in these large sorts of demonstrations. So has the city arranged for porta potties to be set up downtown anywhere? Have the organizers indicated they're bringing them, or what is the status around that aspect?
I'm not sure if Mr. Ayotte has an answer to that question. We have been in conversation with, as I said, convoy captains and apprising them of any of the facilities that would be potentially available. My understanding is that porta potties were a consideration in and around Parliament. I'm not sure what the City of Ottawa has been involved with at this point.
Yeah, we're currently assessing the need and quantity, et cetera. We also have information to suggest that the organizers are organized in that they have ordered porta potties. So now we're competing with them with regards to access, but we are looking into that, and we'll hopefully have something ready based on the number of people who are showing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. We will now go to Xiao Li with City News National.
Hi, can everyone hear me all right?
We can.
Thank you. So my first question is, of course, as the chief mentioned, there are certainly going to be people in the convoy who are seeking to peacefully protest, as well as other people who may be coming downtown just to rubberneck despite advice not to. In the event that Ottawa police needs to clear the area or ask people to peacefully disperse, what sort of signals will be given to the people who are present so they're going to be able to, disperse peacefully?
Thanks for the question, Charlie. We will, as we normally do, we have equipment, loud hailers, any types of voice magnifiers if we need that. Our officers will be in the crowd and will be engaging with the crowd. And if it comes to a situation where we are needing to evacuate a certain area or disperse the crowd, we will do so first by, obviously giving people warnings and making the requests verbally through a variety of means in order to achieve that.
Thanks very much for that answer. And as a follow-up, I mean, certainly January 6th in DC has been looming over lots of people's thinking ahead of this convoy's arrival. I just wanted to ask if anyone was prepared to speak a bit candidly about how present that risk is in the thinking for Ottawa police in planning for this.
Thank you very much. I'll take that question. I recognize that's been sewn into the narrative of this overall situation. While we are informed by events that happen around the world, and certainly to our neighbors south of the border, this is Canada and this is the nation's capital of Ottawa. We have great faith and confidence in Canadians from coast to coast. And in this case, we have Canadians from coast to coast participating in the convoy and likely coming on their own to some degree to participate as individuals in and around the demonstrations. We have every confidence in the world that the vast majority of people who are choosing to come to the city or who live in the city and choose to participate in some form or the other within the demonstrations will do so as Canadians do, lawfully, peacefully, and with respect to everybody, that they will enact their Charter of Rights, but also enact the responsibilities that come with such freedoms. And they will work with the police, with the City of Ottawa, with the emergency service providers, with the residents and the businesses to make sure that their voices can be heard, their opinions can be shared, their frustrations can be aired, and they'll go home safely to their families. For those that choose to do otherwise, they can be assured that there will be a commensurate response to any acts of violence or criminality, any expressions of hate and intolerance, and any acts of disrespect. We're prepared as best as we possibly can be for those that choose to come here to do harm, to cause others to do harm. But this is Canada, and we truly believe the vast majority of people involved in any aspect of this will do so peacefully and lawfully.
Thanks very much for that.
Thank you, sir. We will now go to Josh Pringle with CTV Ottawa. Josh.
Thank you very much. My question is for Chief Slowly. We received several emails from businesses concerned about safety of their staff, customers, property leading up to this weekend. Do you recommend that businesses in the Byward Market, Centertown area close their doors this weekend because of the protest?
Thank you very much. An important discussion that's been taking place over the last several days. I can tell you over the last 72 hours, our neighborhood resource teams, particularly the market team that has been operating down in the Byward Market and in the main commercial and retail area of the downtown core, have been actively meeting with and speaking with and planning with, sharing information with the businesses, the residents, the business improvement associations, the local councillor. In fact, those meetings took place as late as this morning, just prior to this meeting. We're sharing with them as much information as we can so they can make the most informed decisions possible. Ultimately, any private citizen and any private business has to make their own decisions as to whether or not to open their business, to have staff and employees present, and to provide services, goods or services to the community. Our responsibility is to give them the most up-to-date information possible for them to make those decisions. We will make sure that we are very aware of the potential threats and risks that could occur in and around their residences, their private residences, and their private businesses. And we'll do everything we can to keep those people and their property as safe as possible.
So no recommendation, just you'll provide them the information and try to keep them as safe as possible?
That's a decision that every private individual and private business owner has to make on their own. Our responsibility is to provide them with the most accurate, up-to-date information, as well as the services commensurate to the risks that we can mitigate.
All right. Thank you, Josh. We will now go to David Aiken with Global National News. David?
Hi, thanks very much, everybody. This has been a very excellent briefing. Chief, I wonder if I could come back to just, you mentioned not really sure on the numbers, and I guess that's one of the things that's making everybody a bit anxious. Kingston Police Services, as you may be aware, on their Twitter account, did release a bit of an accounting about the number of tractors, tractor trailers, personal vehicles. Thunder Bay OPP, I spoke to them yesterday, and they were able to provide an accounting of the group that came out of Western Canada. So by my count, we got about 230 tractors and or tractor trailers and about 725 cars. That's just the convoy from Western Canada and the one coming out of Toronto, Kingston. Do you have some, surely you've got some information from Quebec Police about what's coming from Montreal, maybe from RCMP about what came out of the Maritimes? Do you have, first of all, do those numbers sound roughly accurate, what I just gave you? And what can you add from what's coming from the East, so far as we're aware from other police services?
David, thank you for your question. I'll start. If Deputy Ferguson has top up, I'll invite her to complete the answer. What you've described is accurate. The jurisdictions where the convoy has passed through have been able to provide, as of that moment, that day, that hour, the count of vehicles and demonstrators that they're able to ascertain. I think we also know that as this has traveled from the West Coast through the prairies, now through Ontario, that the numbers change. The numbers swell while in province and they shrink while they cross the provincial border. They swell as they go through cities, particularly large regions, and they drop off. So there's a steady state and then what I would call an accordion effect as they move through different jurisdictions. So until they arrive here, we won't get an accurate count. That's the bottom line. We have estimations, but we won't have an accurate count until they actually arrive in this jurisdiction. You are accurate. We do have our Quebec provincial partners, as well as our police and provincial partners in the Maritimes, providing us with numbers of persons and vehicles who are leaving their jurisdiction and traveling towards Ottawa. We expect that we're going to have people arriving from the south, the east, the west, and the north, and those numbers will grow as we go through the next 24 hours to 48 hours. The numbers you just gave me are reasonably accurate with the briefings that we have received overnight through this morning in terms of what's coming through the main corridor up the 401 from Windsor through the GTA into Eastern Ontario. With that, I'll invite Deputy Ferguson to top up any information with anything more current that she has.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, David, for the question. I think that's a fairly accurate representation of what we've been apprised of. We are in touch with our partners in the Ontario Provincial Police and getting updates from them. We have heard that there could be from 1 to 200 vehicles coming from New Brunswick, and what size and shape of vehicles we are not aware of, whether that is all tractor trailers or a combination of personal vehicles and trucks. And we are also aware that there may be a large volume of people moving across from the Quebec side over in our Gatineau neighbors, so anywhere from 2,000 people, but we have heard that these will be on foot and we're expecting pedestrians. So we are looking at any number of a combination of people arriving on foot and in vehicles into the city.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen lots of demonstrations on the Hill with 10,000, 20,000 people. I guess it's the trucks that makes the thing a bit different. Chief, one more question that you've mentioned several times. You talk about the core organizers, and I wonder if you can speak a little bit more about who they are, where they're coming from, how many. We're trying to figure them out too. I mentioned convoys coming from the West, from Toronto, elsewhere. Does each one have an organizer? Can you tell us who these are and how many there are, the core organizers, and where they're from?
David, thank you. I'll turn that question over to Deputy Chief Ferguson. As she's preparing the answer, though, I will just say, and I appreciate the focus has remained on the trucks and the convoys. And again, I want to be clear, to the greatest extent, we have received good communication and cooperation from those core organizers. But as I talked about in my opening comments, and as Deputy Ferguson has referred to, the risk factors extend beyond the core demonstrators to those that have already indicated online and in other forums that they're prepared to engage directly or indirectly with the events that will transpire over the next several days here. And some of them have been very clear in inciting hate, encouraging acts of violence and criminality. So we have a good plan, well-resourced, focused on the core element of a large vehicle convoy entering into the downtown core of the nation's capital and all of the risks that come with that. But we have the asymmetric threats that are attributed to individuals and groups that are also parallel to this demonstration, engaging in online activities and stating that they will engage in in-person activities within the city. So it is a very complex, fast-moving, and still very fluid situation that we are managing to this point. I will invite Deputy Ferguson to top up on your question.
Thank you, sir. We have seen the numbers grow and shrink, but we are currently 8 separate convoy captains who we are in communication with.
Thank you very much, everyone. Just going to check on a few outlets. Do we have someone on from CTV National News, Kevin Gallagher or someone else? Doesn't sound like it. And do we have someone from CBC National News? Okay, then we will move on next to Lila Dussault avec la presse.
Oui, bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Parfait. Première question, savez-vous où on en est en termes de temps? Vers quelle heure les premiers convois sont-ils attendus à Ottawa? De quelle direction pensez-vous qu'ils vont arriver en premier, etc.?
Merci, Lila. Nous savons, le chef a déjà mentionné que nous avions déjà vu un groupe de personnes quelques groupes qui sont déjà arrivés à notre ville. La manifestation principale est due à commencer demain, alors samedi à midi, mais nous attendons que nous allons avoir les groupes qui arrivent pendant la journée aujourd'hui, mais nous ne sommes pas au courant s'ils vont rester en ville ou s'ils vont se présenter et retirer pour revenir demain.
Excellent. Donc, ça m'amène à ma deuxième question. Énormément de personnes se préparent à arriver à Ottawa alors qu'il y a des avertissements de froid extrême. Est-ce que vous avez des informations à savoir comme où les gens prévoient rester cette nuit? Est-ce qu'il y a assez d'hébergement pour tout le monde et craignez-vous qu'il y ait des risques pour la sécurité des personnes en termes d'engelure ou de froid?
C'est une excellente question, Lila. Ça va être la responsabilité des manifestants eux-mêmes, mais en tant que sécurité, et puis c'est notre priorité pour tout le monde. Alors, nous allons être au courant et faire notre possible pour travailler avec nos partenaires s'il y a du monde qui cherche de l'hébergement ou qui sont en panne.
Merci, Lila.
Merci beaucoup.
Oui, merci. On va maintenant à Marie Vassel avec Le Devoir. Marie? Marie n'est pas là. On va aller à Julien Paquette avec Le Droit. Julien?
Bonjour. For my first question, I think it would be for Chief Slowly. I just wanted to follow up on a previous question by one of my colleagues. And I'll ask the question a little differently. I know you said you don't have any recommendation for businesses downtown if they should open or not. So I'll ask the question differently. What would make your job easier this weekend? Would it be easier if a lesser number of businesses are open, or if they're all open?
Thank you, Julian. And I appreciate the reframing of the question. From a policing and public safety standpoint, I'll be very blunt. The least amount of traffic, vehicle traffic, bicycle traffic, pedestrian traffic, other than our mass transportation in and around the downtown core will facilitate to the greatest degree possible a safe environment for all involved. But I cannot dictate to individuals that may have a medical appointment, who may need to seek or receive services that are essential to their health and safety. There are businesses that are essential for keeping this city moving, even on a weekend, even on a short-term basis. So it's irresponsible and quite frankly impossible for us to dictate which of those services can and should operate. It is responsible and it is possible for us to provide the most up-to-date information in the most direct way that we can to private citizens and business owners to allow them to make the most informed decisions. We're encouraging people to do what they can do today and over the next 24 hours to alleviate the need for them to transact, to travel, to receive services or seek services outside of emergency services over the course of the next several days. But people will have to make their own informed decisions. That said, should the threat environment change substantially, should we have definitive information that there are directed threats towards any part of the city, any people in the city, any businesses in the city, we will provide that information, and if necessary, we'll make very direct recommendations at that time. Our threat intelligence does not provide us with that level of risk, but if it changes, we will change with it as quickly and as effectively as possible.
Thank you. Ma question de suivi, je crois que ce serait pour M. Ayotte. On a parlé un peu plus tôt aussi de la question des salles de bain. Dans le fond, tous ces gens-là vont devoir évidemment se soulager à l'occasion. Donc, est-ce qu'il y a une crainte que la responsabilité ou le fardeau un peu de fournir ces services-là tombe un peu sur les commerces du centre-ville, que ce soit des restaurants, des cafés, tout autre locaux commerciaux, dans le fond?
Merci pour ta question. Non, c'est pas ça la crainte. On pense que c'est pareil comme la Journée du Canada. Donc, quand on va avoir beaucoup de monde en entour, on veut vraiment avoir les capacités de leur aider un peu. Nous sommes en discussion avec le Parlement pour voir si eux autres, parce que le groupe va s'organiser sur la côte et on va voir. Mercredi passé, on s'est fait dire qu'il était pour en mettre des toilettes bleues, si c'est possible. Mais sinon, la ville va en livrer pour faire sûr que c'est quelque chose qui soit là pour pas que le monde trouve d'autres options. Merci.
Merci. We will now go to Taylor Blewett with the Ottawa Citizen.
Thanks so much for this briefing. First question would be for the police chief. I believe would be best to answer this. Can you say, is your main concern about the potential for violence from those groups or individuals who would be considered counter-protesters, or those who've attached or associated with the main convoy and affiliated demonstration activities?
Thank you for your question, Taylor. Again, while there has been a lot of very unfortunate and at times very inflammatory discourse on social media and other similar such forums, we have yet to receive a direct threat assessment for any group that we can reasonably anticipate is coming to the nation capital. We cannot, however, ignore the rhetoric. We cannot ignore the direct hate language and threats, and we cannot ignore the direct attempts to incite violence and criminality in and around the demonstration. Should the situation change and we can identify individuals or groups where there is clear enough information that they intend to act in a criminal or violent manner, there are a range of options for us to interdict those individuals as early as possible prior to them being able to cause significant, if any, harm. I mentioned in my opening briefing, we are prepared with intelligence assets, investigators, the support of many other police services from across the province, our partners with the RCMP, Sûreté de Québec, Ontario Provincial Police, to interdict where necessary individuals or groups who we can determine are planning to or imminently about to commit acts of violence or criminality. Our liaison with the Crown Attorney's Office will allow for coordination around investigations and subsequent prosecutions. Commensurate to the acts of individuals, there will be consequences for those individuals. Right now, what we expect and what we've been told by the main organizers is a peaceful and cooperative demonstration over several days in the nation's capital. There are risks associated just to that. We've talked about that in terms of traffic congestion, the potential for a range of problems that come with a congested area in a downtown core, and we're doing our best to mitigate that. But we are prepared to deal with any individuals or groups that come here to cause harm or to commit crimes, or in the course of the demonstration, come into friction with each other and spontaneously crime or violence happens. That's why, again, we ask everyone to come here with the true intention to demonstrate and to use their charter rights and freedoms to the fullest extent while being responsible and respectful in every way to everybody.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, unrelated, but have police force members or city staff received any directives from their management or leadership about personal participation in this convoy, demonstrations, or related activities?
Thank you for your question. I won't speak for Kim Ayot. I'll leave him to speak for the City of Ottawa. As with every demonstration that we have, and quite frankly, our 24/7 responsibilities to keep 1 million people in this city safe through their police services, our responsibility is to our oath of office and not to our personal views. Our values and our policy structure are always in place, regardless of whether there's a demonstration or it's just day-to-day operations. My expectation of Chief of Police of the Ottawa Police Service is that every member of this service will adhere to their oath of office, our core values, and our policies. If there are any breaches of those areas, there will be commensurate responses and there will be consequences associated to it. Specifically, when we have a large demonstration like this, within our operational plan and our briefings, we remind our officers and our members of their oath of office and their responsibilities, of the standards of dress and deportment, the requirements for effective professional communication, so that there is no misunderstanding and no forgetting of the standards expected of the Ottawa Police Service and its members. And that includes me as Chief of Police. But I'll leave it to Kim if he would like to speak on behalf of the City of Ottawa.
Well, Chief, that was very well said, and it applies to all city employees as well. We have a very strict code of conduct, and we would expect everyone to follow that code and to act accordingly. And any breaches of that will be investigated, and we'll look into the consequences as well. But very much along the lines of what you just said, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you. On va maintenant à Emmanuel Poisson avec Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour. Ma première question, j'aimerais savoir quel est le nombre d'équipes ou du moins le nombre de membres de la police d'Ottawa qui va être sur le terrain en fin de semaine. Et est-ce que parmi ceux-là, il y en a qui vont être attitrés à protéger certains édifices sensibles, je veux dire, mettons sur la rue Wellington ou ailleurs?
Merci, Emmanuel. Alors, nous ne sommes pas dans l'habitude de dévoiler l'exact nombre d'officiers que nous avions sur la route pendant les manifestations cette fin de semaine, mais vous pouvez voir ou vous attendre à voir plusieurs officiers en une variété d'uniformes et avec différentes sortes d'équipements. Et puis, dans les régions que nous avions identifiées à être particulièrement importantes pour avoir une bonne vue de ce qui se passe. Alors, c'est possible. Vous allez voir des constables sur les toits des édifices dans la ville propre. Nous avions aussi accès aux drones. Et puis, c'est possible que vous allez voir cette sorte d'équipement qui fait partie de notre équipement cette fin de semaine.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. Ma prochaine question, c'est que on a des sources, on aura entendu entre les branches qu'il y a des députés qui auraient été visés par certaines personnes, notamment des gens du convoi qui tenteraient de chercher leur adresse pour aller les voir. Est-ce que vous êtes au courant de ça? Est-ce que vous confirmez cela et quelle est votre stratégie pour assurer leur protection?
I'll take first step at that. Thank you for your question. First of all, as I referenced and as Deputy Ferguson has talked about, the planning for this event started a week ago. It is involved at every step of the way and will continue all the way. Coordination, information sharing, intelligence sharing, threat risk assessment sharing between local, provincial, national agencies, including our national security agencies, and those agencies that have direct responsibility for the security of Parliament, parliamentarians from all parties, and significant public officials. I will tell you with great confidence that we have received briefings. I have had direct briefings between myself and RCMP Commissioner Brenda Luckie in the last 24 hours. I've had direct briefings between myself and OPP Commissioner Tom Carrique on the status of threat assessments relating to provincial and federal government and officials, elected officials, public officials. I think it is also relevant that over the course of this pandemic and in recent years, unfortunately, we have seen increasing threats and targets towards elected officials and public officials. Again, unfortunately, and it is an important point to make, leaders who are trying to advance public safety, public health outcomes, and our government have been targeted. Here in this city, we have had municipal councillors, provincial members of provincial parliament, and members of parliament directly threatened. We've had our own mayor, the victim of hate crimes and hate incidents. This is not Canadian. More importantly, this is not lawful. And as I said, the Ottawa Police Service and our policing partners, national security partners, will take very strong, immediate, and prolonged steps to investigate, arrest if necessary, charge and prosecute anybody who commits acts of criminality, acts of violence, or incites hate that results in criminality or violence.
Merci. On va maintenant à Pascal Vachon avec TFO.
Oui, bonjour, vous m'entendez bien?
Oui.
Je voulais savoir, c'est pas la première fois qu'on voit des manifestations sur la colline du Parlement, mais au niveau de celle-là, est-ce que vous qualifieriez le niveau d'alerte comme peut-être du jamais vu ou quelque chose qui est assez unique? À quel point le niveau d'alerte est élevé pour cette manifestation-là?
Merci, Pascal. Chaque manifestation est différente. Alors, c'est la manière que nos constables font leur approche avec ça. C'est vraiment le dévoulement de la foule, leur action qui guide et qui gère notre réaction ou notre approche pour ça. Alors, nous attendons, nous espérons que tout le monde va bien ou avoir des bonnes actions, mais nous allons réagir à ce que en réaction de la foule même.
Et en sous-question, vous demandez aux gens qui ne viennent pas aller au centre-ville, mais pour les gens qui sont déjà au centre-ville, qu'est-ce que vous leur dites? Est-ce qu'ils doivent rester chez eux, éviter de sortir le plus possible? Puis je pense que c'est une question que tout le monde se pose, mais est-ce que c'est sécuritaire, par exemple, d'aller au Canal Rideau patiner, tout simplement?
Certainement, nous apprécions qu'il y ait beaucoup de monde qui reste dans le centre-ville et puis nous avons demandé que s'ils pourraient limiter leur circulation demain et pendant la fin de semaine, ce serait apprécié. Mais s'ils ont des travaux nécessaires à faire, ils sont capables de sortir et de faire la circulation, mais de s'attendre à beaucoup de délais, spécialement en véhicule. S'ils sont à pied pour aller sur le canal, il n'y a pas de problème du tout, mais d'être patient et de s'attendre à avoir des délais.
Merci. We will now go to Alex Ballingal with the Toronto Star.
Hi, thanks very much. Sorry, I was trying to change my name to put Toronto Star in it, so thank you for identifying me. I appreciate it. Just for Chief Slowly, on the you mentioned the parallel groups. I'm wondering if you can get more specific about which groups you're referring to, if you can get that specific. We obviously have the trucker convoys, the 8 captains you guys mentioned, but these parallel groups that you've talked about that you're concerned with, who are they? What are we talking about there?
I appreciate the question, and I know it was asked before. At this point, we're not in a position to name groups. The intelligence is ongoing. That will not cease until the complete end of the demonstration, and even after that, there will still be potential follow-up investigations or issues that require intelligence operations. As of right now, the concern is the totality of the circumstances that we're facing. We have a core set of demonstrations and a clear and consistent indication, clear and consistent statements by individuals who claim to be parts of other groups or who actually claim to be just acting on an individual basis, who say that they will become involved directly or indirectly in the set of demonstrations happening over the next several days. And a small portion of those individuals are attributing their actions to direct criminality, direct acts of violence, or inciting others to commit direct criminality and direct act of violence in the city. And those risks cannot be ignored, will not be ignored, and are being addressed to the greatest degree possible. But the ability for us to name specific individuals or groups at this point, that is not an opportunity for us right now.
Okay, thanks for that. And just you mentioned, I'm not sure if you can get into more specifics than what you said, but when talking about the elected officials and the doxing warning that went out last night to MPs, you'd spoken with Commissioner Lucky and the OPP about the threat assessments against officials. Can you share what the assessment is at this point? Like, is there a risk to elected individual or elected officials at this point? What is the threat assessment for those people right now?
Thank you. The nature of the threats that we have seen in the last 18 to 24 months are similar to the nature of the threats that we've seen in the last 18 to 24 hours. You referenced doxing. I think that's probably the predominant methodology of delivering threatening or hate-filled activities towards elected officials, public officials, and private citizens, business owners. Doxing is one form of it, a very pernicious and debilitating form. But statements, again, that incite criminal behavior, that incite hate to individuals. We've seen misogynistic hate, racist hate, homophobic hate. We've seen threats of assaultive behavior, mischief. Some of those have translated into actual incidents over the last 24 months that members of the Ottawa Police Service have joined with our national security partners in investigating and following up, and we've laid charges in some cases. We're prepared to do so if anything like that transpires over the next 48 to 72 hours. The lead role for protecting parliamentarians is with the RCMP, and the lead role for protecting Parliament Hill and its related buildings are with Parliamentary Protective Services. They are fully engaged and incorporated within the operational plan and within the command center operations. And so anything that should occur in and around the demonstrations in the next several days that relates to the security of the Parliament buildings, the parliamentarians or public officials will be dealt with in a coordinated and immediate manner. But this is a problem that we're seeing in broader society, where elected officials and public officials are the subject of hate, the subject of the incitement of crimes against them, and the actual victimization. As I said before, it's illegal, and I believe it's incredibly un-Canadian. We can and should do better as a society. But for those that fall below that standard, there will be a response in this jurisdiction and other jurisdictions.
Thank you. This concludes today's media availability. Cela conclut le point de presse aujourd'hui. Thank you everyone for making yourselves available. Merci à toutes et à tous.